Hey, thanks for dropping by and checking out this message. These lessons come from our Sunday gatherings at Victory Christian Church in Franklin, Indiana. Our 5th through 8th graders meet at 9 or 10:30 a.m. and our high schoolers meet from 6 to 8 p.m. If you find that this content brings value to your life, then please consider subscribing and hitting that bell so that you can be notified when we upload our next message. Our hope is that this video brings more clarity into your life as to who God is and what He wants for you in light of who Jesus is and what He's done for you. Enjoy and have a great day. How you guys doing today? Awesome. Well, hey, we're in this series on the beginner's guide to connecting with God. And I love this series. I said this every week because I think that it's an opportunity for us to be able to relearn, some of us who have forgotten because of busyness or craziness or whatever, or some of us maybe we never learned, but how to actually connect with God in an effective way. Because sometimes the tension that we feel is that it seems like the people around us are doing a great job of connecting with God, and then you're sitting there like, I don't know if I'm connecting with God the way everybody else is because I don't feel it the way everybody else is. So if you guys have missed, then make sure you check out the lessons online. If this is your first time here, make sure you go back later. But I'm super excited. Before we get into today, I did a little poll this morning on Instagram. So if you've got Instagram and you haven't followed us yet, make sure you follow Victory CC Students and make sure you take the poll on the story right now because there's a poll going on. And while some of you are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and ask you the questions now. So the question is, are you tired? Like, if I were to ask you right now, how many of you would say, I am tired? Like honestly exhausted. Like, just you're worn out, you're stressed, you're busy, you're crazy, you're tired. Like, that covers most people, most days. I know I would be included in that. This last weekend, I had like 3 months ago, I had a tree fall down my yard because it was dead. And this last weekend, I finally, cut it all up and with a chainsaw. And I'd never done that before, but apparently it's really tiring on your arms. So I can't really feel my arms today, but that's why I'm tired. So maybe I want to know why you guys are tired. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Raise your hand if this applies, or if you're on Instagram right now, just go ahead and fill out the poll there. I'll look at the results here in a minute. But how many of you would say you're tired because of band practice? Anybody? One? Okay. So we got one person. How many of you would say you're tired?
We got two.
Oh, two. Okay, awesome.
Raise your hand high.
Raise your hand high so I can see. No shame. I was a band kid. Raise your hand if you are tired because of choir rehearsals. I don't know if those have started up yet. Anybody? Okay. Raise your hand if you're tired because of a sport of some kind. Okay. Leaders, help me count here.
I got 18.
That's what I got. Okay, cool. All right. Raise your hand if you are tired because of homework.
Homework already?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay.
Your teachers are so mean.
Says the teacher.
I didn't give any homework.
Okay. Here's one. Are you tired because you were on your phone late at night when you should have been sleeping? 1, 2, 3. Okay. That one actually kind of surprises me. Maybe some of you are not being honest. How many of you, we've got a lot of 5th and 6th graders in the room who don't have phones yet, so maybe that's part of it. All right. How many of you are tired because of now getting up early for school? Because you didn't have to do that all summer. Welcome back. 1, 2, 3. $18 on that one as well. Okay. What about chores or household work? Tired because of that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that one actually is surprisingly high for what I imagined. Some of you parents are either working your kids as slaves or kids are just weak and complaining. I'm just kidding. I'm messing with you, kind of. All right, so anything I missed? Is there another reason you guys are tired? What? Tired.
Tired just because he's doing nothing.
Just because tired of doing nothing. That's a good thing to be tired of.
TV at night.
Sleeping at night, is that what you said?
TV at night.
TV at night. Okay, yeah. Oh, that was one I forgot to ask. How many of you would say you're tired because you're either on YouTube or playing video games way past your bedtime? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
Eli, I didn't raise his hand.
Okay, sweet. All right. So, reasons. The top 3 reasons that you guys are tired, according to the live poll we just did, was 1, sports practices, tied with getting up early for school. So those were the top 2. And then in 3rd place was homework, believe it or not. That was one thing that tires you guys already. You're 3 days into school, most of you. Some of you, you already had a test? Is that what you said? Was it like, how was your summer? Or was it like...
No, I had a 50 question test.
Nice. That's not fun. Tell you what, I know. Let's bring it back here for a minute. So I know that middle school is exhausting because believe it or not, at one point I was your age and I was in middle school. I remember breaking down in the front living room with my mom and dad, crying because I was so stressed out. And I didn't cry very often, but I was like bawling my eyes out because I was so stressed out and I felt like I could not keep up with anything. I was I remember my mom was sitting in our chair that was it was our comfy chair that rocks, you guys have one of those. She was sitting in that and I was on the floor trying to figure out my schedule because in the fall we had to figure out our classes for the spring. So it was at the end of the fall semester and I was trying to figure out my schedules and I had practice going on and I was at band. I was exhausted and I was tired. And I felt like if I didn't get in the right classes, I was not going to be able to, do the right classes in high school. And then I wasn't going to be able to graduate with the things that I needed to go to the right college, to get the right degree, to get the right job, to have the best life, right? And so I felt like so stressed out. And I was just crying because of how tired I was with trying to play keep up all the time. And on top of it, I had about 2 hours of homework every night that I just didn't seem to be able to finish all the way. And some of you can relate to that because you have a lot on your plates. You've got a lot going on. For those of you who are involved in extracurriculars, that requires a lot. So I get it. I know where you guys are coming from. And you know what? If we're being honest, sometimes it just leaves you stressed, right? How many stress would be the word that you would use to define your life on average throughout the school year? I'm just stressed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to take in, a lot to live up to, and a lot of expectations. Maybe some of you have a goal in mind, right? Maybe you want to make the team, or you want to be a better player, or maybe you want to get the part, or maybe you just really want straight A's. You're going to go for valedictorian in high school, and so that's really important to you. But maybe you have this goal in mind, and it's killing you trying to achieve it. And maybe for some of you, it's not so much a goal that you have, but it's a goal somebody else has for you because of expectations. Maybe you feel like people have high expectations of you, and you don't want to let people down, and so you're just kind of working yourself like crazy, and you don't know how to rest. Trying to connect with God. When we try to do that, we talk about that at church. We talk about how you should spend time with Him and pray and read your Bible, do all the Christian things. Sometimes it feels like trying to connect with God is just more work. More things to do, more stuff on your plate. It's an expectation that your parents or your small group leader or I have for you. It's something that you have a goal for yourself to be able to do. And it's something that maybe you just feel like you can't keep up. And so at the end of the day, when you do everything else, ultimately you're not graded on your connection with God this week the way you are on a homework assignment or doing your chores at home. So That's the one that gets thrown to the back burner, and you sometimes just don't ever get there. And I get it. But let me encourage you to say it's not supposed to just feel that way all the time. In fact, God created you to rest. Turn to the person next to you. Say, God created you to rest. You got to add the pause, okay? Turn to the person next to you. God created you to rest. This is huge because this is something, especially in our culture, that we are really bad at, and we're really good at teaching you how bad we are at it from a young age. Because some of you just all raised your hand for something, saying that you were tired because of something. Now I know some of you were just tired because it's Sunday morning and you wish you could have slept in and it's the first hour, and so you're just tired. But some of you legitimately are stressed and you've got so much on your plate and you're exhausted. And so we do a really good job at teaching you from a young age how to be stressed out and exhausted. And sometimes what's messed up is we teach you that if you're not tired and exhausted, you're being lazy and you're not trying hard enough. That's the message we sometimes communicate indirectly and sometimes even directly as adults. We teach you that you should be busy, you should be stressed out. You know, it's good for you. And reality is God created you to actually be able to stop and rest. And I know that this is true because if we look to the very beginning of the story, God rested. Check this out in Genesis. This is chapter 2. So on the seventh day, this is after he created everything. On the seventh day, he, being God, rested from all his work. Now, if the God of the entire universe, who created everything, who created you and me, took a day, 1 out of 7, to just rest, then you would think that for us being made in his image, that would be something that we should do too, right? Say yes if you agree with me. That's something we should do. We should rest because God created us to rest. In fact, rest is so important to God that he made it a command for all of his people. Check this out. Now, Moses, he had just taken his people out of Egypt. God had sent Moses to deliver them from the slavery to the Egyptians. You guys know the story? And he takes them out of Egypt. If you've seen the cartoon, The Prince of Egypt, and all the singing, and it's pretty cool. You should watch that. I think it's on Netflix. It used to be. If it's not, you can find it somewhere. But Moses brings God's people out of Egypt. And you know, after 400 years of slavery to the Egyptians, and living by the Egyptians' laws as slaves, God had to remind them of what was important, what he wanted them to obey, and what he wanted them to remember. Because believe it or not, they didn't do all the things that you and I would just think you're supposed to do. Sometimes they cheated one another. They stole. Sometimes they killed each other out of anger. And so God gave them what we know as the 10 Commandments today. And you guys know some of them, but sometimes the one we kind of skip by and overlook is one that we should be paying close attention to. Maybe even more than the others. Because if we rested, then we would think twice. We would stop and go into critical thinking mode. We would stop and actually process things. We would spend time with God, and we wouldn't feel the need as strongly to commit the things that we know we shouldn't do. And so we read down. This is going to be like a long one, so stay with me here. This is Exodus chapter 20. And Moses has just come down from getting the 10 Commandments from God. And this is what he says. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Meaning by keeping it set apart, keeping it different than all the other days. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the Sabbath day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. He keeps going. He says, on that day, no one in your household may do any work. Wouldn't that be nice? What if you go to your parents after this and say, Zach said, there's a day we're not supposed to do any work, so I'm not doing any work, right? Don't do that. That'll get you in trouble. Let me finish here. He said, this includes your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them, but on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. Now, this is really important because not only did God himself rest, but he then made an official commandment And not just any, because they had like 611 or 612 laws that they had to follow. If you read the book of Deuteronomy and Numbers and Leviticus, like there's just lots and lots of rules, right? And most of them go over you and I's head because they're more related to the people of that time. Like we've talked about before, so God had some rules to set them apart from other nations. So there were foods they couldn't eat. There's stuff like that going on. But 600 and over 600 laws. And this one's in the top 10. Make sure you remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, and you rest from work. God basically told them to follow the example that he set for them, to work hard when they needed to, but to also make sure they prioritize rest. I want you to look at that word, prioritize. You know what that means? You know what that implies? If you don't prioritize it, it won't happen. So he's saying, I want you to be intentional about setting time aside to be able to rest. Now today, we don't have like a Sabbath day that they did in their culture. In fact, their Sabbath day was Saturday. So a lot of times people think, oh, well, Sunday is Sabbath. Well, actually, technically, going back, that was a Saturday. That was when they went to the temple. That was when they rested from their work. But today we celebrate because of the resurrection. We celebrate on the first day of the week, on Sunday. So that's why all over the world churches meet and gather on Sundays now. And that's the difference here. But what I want you to recognize is that God wanted us to experience something called shalom. You guys have heard that word before? Shalom? Everybody say it. Shalom. Yeah, it's kind of fun to say. But here's what it means. Shalom means complete and utter peace. Complete and utter peace. It's resting physically, mentally, and spiritually. It's wholeness. God wants us to turn our hearts towards Him during this time of rest. So sometimes, I'm going to define this for you, because sometimes we try to call things rest when they're not really rest. So turning our brains off to play video games or watch Netflix is not rest. You may be sitting there like a lump on a log and doing nothing, and trust me, I love doing this, but it's not rest. Because your mind is going to almost a place of transcendence where you're not even like conscious of what's going on around you because you're just looking at a screen. Okay, do you catch what I'm saying? Like, that's good, that's all fun stuff, but it doesn't count as rest. You're not actively like turning your hearts and minds towards God during that time. Most likely, unless you're like watching a devotion or something. I guess that's possible. But rest is one of the ways that we are able to connect with God. When we find shalom, when we actually rest and turn our hearts and minds towards God, that's a way that we can connect with Him. And this whole series, we've been giving you different ways that you can connect with God, and this is absolutely one of them. In fact, I think it's one of the most critical, because unless we are able to stop and remove all distractions, just rest. Like, you ever had a day, how many of you have phones right now? Or iPod? Like, how many of you've taken a day before, and you just like maybe it was because you were grounded and it was against your will, but a day where like you set your phone down and you decide, I'm just gonna like do something else and not be distracted by my phone all day. It's kind of like gives you some anxiety at first because you're like, what am I missing out on, you know? But then if you get used to it, it actually brings you a lot of freedom because you're not like distracted by everything else going on. Your brain isn't constantly looking for something else to keep your attention. It's actually good to be bored because then you actually learn creative thinking. And you actually get to think critically about life. And so this is super important. But not only did God do it Himself, and then He gave a command about it, but then listen to what Jesus ended up saying when He came. He said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you" what? I will give you what? I will give you rest. Ultimately, what He's saying is if we take our stuff to Him, if we actually rest in Jesus, if we look to Him for our rest, He will give it to us. Resting is a way to connect with God. So real quickly, a couple things to think about. What does this mean for me? What does this mean for you? Okay, first off, you have to diagnose what's keeping me from rest. Okay, is it your phone? Is it an extracurricular that you have going on? If so, then how are you going to carve out other time aside from that to be able to rest if that's what makes you tired? You got to find time to be able to rest. So what is it from keeping me that is keeping me from rest? Secondly, what does rest look like for me? Right, and this is a tougher one because it's easier to like figure out what is keeping you from resting, but it's harder to figure out what actually gives you rest. So we've established it's not like watching Netflix or playing video games. Maybe it's going on a walk. Maybe it's just sitting on your bed without anything and just thinking and praying. Maybe for some of you it's taking a nap, right? Maybe for some of you it's just giving yourself time to spend with friends and you just enjoy each other's company. But what is it that gives you rest? Think about that question. And as you guys get ready to go into your small groups, I want you to think of that one thing that is keeping you from getting rest. If you think about that one thing as you head to small group, I think that'll be the first step in you actually being able to figure out how to get rest and to find your rest in God rather than just trying to spin your wheels over and over again. Okay, how many of you, that sounds nice to be able to actually rest and not be stressed out about anything? That's what I want for you. That's what God wants for you. He wants you to be able to have that time where you can live life without just feeling anxious all the time. And this is how we get there. Would you guys pray with me? Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you're notified when we upload future videos. Have a great day.